Hi. Uh, this short segment is going to be your introduction to the R software program. And initially, I had this section into one 45-minute chunk. I'm going to break this up a little bit more, uh, primarily for me, because this is my fourth take, and it's hard to do 45 minutes without screwing up. So let's get started. So I'm going to assume that you've downloaded and opened up R and you get this screen right here. So R is not particularly user friendly for undergraduates or anyone. What you get is a welcome message that tells you the version. Okay, so we're looking at R version 4.0.0. And that's not very helpful, and at the bottom you get a cursor. So let me introduce just the big picture here is what you're going to do is generate data, usually in a spreadsheet like Google Sheets or Excel. You're going to import it into R, and you're going to use the results into a paper. So three-step process. R has a console window which shows you what R is doing. The first thing I'll have you do is get rid of this welcome message. And it's just a nice quick function we'll do, and we'll clear the screen with Control L. Okay. So often when you're writing code, you make lots and lots of mistakes, and sometimes you can't figure out what you're doing wrong and you get a little depressed. Sometimes Control L is nice just to make you feel good again. All right, so that's the console. What I want you to do is create a new script. So we're going to go File, New Script. If you're using a Mac, then I believe it's a new document. And what the difference is between these windows. So your console tells you what R is doing. You can tell it to do things right in the R console. The script window is where you can muck around and write script, and there's no consequences. And what's nice is you can copy and paste and insert and do all sorts of things, put in more comments, and you can save it. So let's start scripting right now. And what we'll do is in the script window, let's do hashtag or pound my first script. Okay, so any code that has the pound in front, you use to put in comments. And I use comments when a few reasons. One is if the code below is complicated and I'm not sure what it does, I will put instructions to myself about what that code is. The other thing that's nice is you can use a string of hashtags and have something like chapter 3. So if you're in the course, we don't get to R until chapter 3. Okay, so that looks nice, and what you can do is you can copy and paste this. Now chapter 4 ready to go, and just work with it here. All right, so my first script, the way to send your script over to R is with, in Windows, it would be Control R. I think it's Apple Enter on Macs. So if you just want to run a single line, you put your cursor at the end of the line, actually anywhere on the line, and you hit Control R. If everything goes well, you don't see anything over at the cursor. Right? If you're running a comment, we didn't want R to do anything. Okay, that's just a direction to myself. if you forget how to send stuff from the script over to the window, you put your cursor over and then you can go to edit, and then you can do run, line, or selection, or you could run all your code. So we could run all, and that's what happens. All right, these are all comments, so it doesn't do anything here. If you forget the hashtag and you try and run it, you get an error, of course. All right, so things R can do. R can be a calculator. So let's say you want to know 4 to the 5th power. Okay, so that is 4, and then on mine it is shift 6 and then 5. So it's 4 raised to the 5th. Control R, it's 1024. Let me talk about real quick what happened here is in the console, it tells you what R did, and its output here created a single element, 1024. This one in brackets is an index that tells you where you are, and it's not really needed when you have a single element, but we can produce a string of numbers. So one handy function is a colon. So let's count from 1 to 100, okay, and we'll run that. Okay. So when we have a nice string of numbers, these are going to match up. But the 19th element is 19, the 55th element. Here's the 91st element, and then 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, the 100th element, right? So these numbers are indices, and they're just telling you where you are in this series of numbers. All right, objects and functions. So R is an object-oriented programming language, and an object can be a single number. It can be a string of numbers. It can be a function. I'm sorry. It could be the output of something. I've even created maps that are objects. And you create an object, and then you can do stuff with your object. All right. And then a function is something that R is doing to numbers. And let's just put this in here. We'll create a comment, and we'll go function argument. Okay. And let's just say we can have argument 1, argument 2, ... So we can have several arguments or just one argument. Okay, so one common function that I use teaching statistics is creating random normal distributions. So we're going to create an object called A, and your object you can call anything you want. What you shouldn't call it is the name of a function, and don't call it function. You can call it object, but I would do things like call it object 1, object 2. And very rarely would you do that. You should be a little bit more descriptive. So when I create regressions that are objects, I call it reg 1, reg 2, etc. Right? Map 1, map 2. So, but we're just going to create an object A, and this symbol here is a designator symbol. And what that means is A is, and then let's create some function, and created a random normal distribution. We have R norm. Okay. And it requires 3 arguments. One is how many numbers do you want? One is the mean of those numbers. And the second argument, 0, is the distribution from which are you pulling those 100 numbers. It's not the mean of those numbers. And then 1 is the standard deviation of the distribution you're pulling those numbers from. So if we run this, nothing happens. Okay? And we can print our object just by putting in the name of the object. So A is our thing, and if we want to print it, okay, which means show it on our graphics, we just return the number. So those are 100 random numbers from a distribution whose mean is 0 and whose standard deviation is 1. Let me show you a second function. Another argument, function is the mean. And we're going to take the mean of A. So, like I said, once you create an object, you can do things with it. So let's just take the mean of those 100 random numbers. What do we get? Okay. So here's your first lesson. You created or pulled 100 numbers from a distribution whose mean is 0 and whose standard deviation is 1. It does not mean when you take the mean of those numbers, you'll get a mean of 0. Okay. The other thing is, I pulled these 100 numbers out. If you look at your numbers, you don't have these numbers. In fact, the probabilities are exceedingly low because we are pulling from an infinite distribution, just 100 numbers. So if you get these numbers, there's something wrong with the universe. Something very interesting is happening with the universe. All right, so we took the mean of A. Its original distribution was 0, and then a sample has a mean of, mine is negative 0.04. Yours is going to be different because you have different numbers, right? Maybe yours is closer to 0. Maybe it's farther away. All right, so that is a function and an object. And like I said, once you create an object, here's is just a string of numbers. You can do things with that object, right? All right. Some other things about the console. Let's say you wanted to run, for whatever reason, you didn't like the numbers you got from that function rnorm. If you hit the up arrow, you can rerun it again. And if you flip through, hit the up and down keys, you will get the code that you ran before. And that's handy when you make mistakes and you just need to fix a quick mistake. All right. The other thing I want to show you is when you're dealing with functions, you can put a question mark before the function. Right? So this function rnorm, okay, with the 3 arguments. Let's say you couldn't remember what the 3 arguments were. You want to know how specific those arguments need to be. You put a question mark in the function, and when you hit return, it pulls up a website. I don't know if you can see this, but it pulls up a website that defines rnorm and gives you the details on what statistics you need. And that is very handy. All right. If you can't remember something, even the name of a function, but you know it has something to do with like a normal distribution, you use 2 question marks, and then it does something like a keyword search, and that is also very handy. All right. All right, for review, how do you clear your screen? All right, so this console's looking pretty messy. How do I clear it? In Windows, it's just Control-L. Okay. Console window, script window, okay, pretty handy. If things overlap, all right, let me give you one more function. We want a histogram of those random numbers, right? To look at the frequency and the distribution. Again, jumping way ahead of us. A normal distribution looks like what? nice humpback bell-shaped curve. How many people have seen that? All right, so we do a histogram of this. Here's our output. Not perfectly normal, but pretty close. Remember, the distribution is perfectly normal, but our sample of 100 may not necessarily be so. Which means all of your samples, when you're doing research, aren't exactly perfect. Anyway, so here we have three windows: a graphics device, graphics window, a script window, and here's our console window. And you may lose something, like if I close that and it's gone. What you can do is you can tile vertically. And let's run our histogram again. So that's easy, just hit that arrow. All right, so we have these windows and I can't see what's going on. You can just hit Windows and then tile how you see fit, okay? And this is actually almost the opposite of what it is the opposite of what I like. So I like my graphics to be all the way to the right. I actually like to stack my script window on top. And keep my console window pretty small, because all I'm using my console for the most part, is to look at some output, but mostly to see if there's any errors in my coding. Okay. So this is more or less how I like to arrange my windows. It's all on personal preference. You can also change the colors of your background. You go to Edit, GUI Preferences, and you change the colors here. I have mine, my background is black, my normal text is white, and user text is red, and that just makes it easy for me to recognize things. All right, so we talked about the script editor and scripting. All right, that's all I want to do for right now. We'll come back and then we'll do getting data into R and out of R. All right.